sure how long it's going to be, but
5-10 minutes, we'll start saying the creed.
Okay, I wrote this paper according to this title page in December 1985. So it's a long time ago. And it's called Noah and the Remnant. And it's an exegetical study. So the first thing I did was define exegesis, which is exegesis is a process of exploring a passage to discover its meaning and to transmit this understanding to his readers. And I chose Noah and the story known as Noah and the Ark. And the first thing I had to do was define the limits of the passage. And that's Genesis 6:5 to Genesis 9:19. And then I explained my reasons why that was the beginning and the ending. Then I reconstructed the passage. What I did was our teacher had a bunch of primary sources and secondary sources reserved in the library so we could use them. And one of them was a Jewish Translation Society's translation of the Masoretic text. And that was my basis. But I looked at a lot of I looked at Targums, I looked at the different translations of the Bible. I can't remember what all I looked at. And I came up with my own modified version of it. And the words that I changed, I underlined. And then at the end, I explained why I changed those words to what I did. Then I split the story because it's a combination of the P story and the J story. And the redactor used the P story as his basis and then cut it up and fit in pieces of the J story into it. And so we have less J story than we do P story.
Yeah, and J is the Yahwist.
The P story is relatively complete, but the J story, when you read it by itself, there's gaps because he left out parts in order to fit it in with the P story. And so I laid out each of those separately and then commented on it. And then, after I did that, and I found out that when the redactor put them together, he did 2 glosses, which means he changed things around a little bit to make it fit together, where it didn't. And one of them was at Genesis 7, 8, and 9, and the other one was at Genesis 9, 18b, to bring the genealogy into line with the following story of Noah's drunkenness. Because that's what follows the flood. He grows the first wine grapes, makes the first wine, and proceeds to get drunk. So he was the first drunkard in history. And then I went into the history of the documents, and I came up with the idea that it was behind the written documents was a long oral tradition, and some of it would have been, some of it sounds like it could have been taken from Sumerian Babylonian flood stories. I don't know. At the time, I put that that's probably where they got it from, but I'm not so sure of that now. I think maybe they had their own version to begin with, and they were alike because so many civilizations had flood stories. It was a very common thing. And then it was originally it would have been told around the campfires in the evenings. Probably they had storytellers. There were professional storytellers, and it would go around from tribe to tribe, clan to clan, and tell the stories of the nation of Israel, their history stories. And so that's how that got started. And then it was eventually put into writing. And at this point, when I did this, I said that it was put in writing during the exile. And I'm not so sure about that now. I'm not sure what I think. My thinking on some of what I wrote then has changed because it's been 39 years.
Yeah.
So, obviously I've learned other things in the meantime. But I also said that it was set in a period of the prehistory when the world had fallen into immorality and evil. Some of the events that illustrate this state of affairs are Cain had murdered Abel, the sons of God, quote unquote, had intermarried with the daughters of men, quote unquote, and God had shortened man's lifespan. I think last week we read about he reduced it to 120 years. Before that, in the genealogy, it was 800, 900 years apiece. But because they were evil, God said, no, I'm not going to let that happen anymore. Then I went into the social setting. And of course, Israelite life, the basic unit of life was the family, and then there was a clan and the tribe. And then the tribes were more or less united. And I said that they were allowed to preserve their economic structure, building houses, planting gardens, practicing their crafts, and preserving their public safety in the exile. But I'm not so sure of all that either anymore. But it's true that their religious practices underwent a tremendous change because they no longer had the temple and they no longer had sacrifice. Because, of course, in the destruction of Jerusalem, the temple was completely destroyed too. So they placed a new emphasis on the Sabbath and circumcision, and they added the synagogue, the study of Torah, and worship rites other than sacrifice. And then I talked about the Sumerian society that they were exiled to, and they had the family as a basic unit of life also. And then I wrote, however, the society also had a class structure consisting of 3 classes. And for some reason, I didn't say what the 3 classes were. And I wish now I had, because I'd like to know what they were. I don't know what my thinking was at the time. But the Sumerians had an agricultural animal husbandry economic situation because the Euphrates and Tigris rivers would flood like the Nile did, and then they would channel the water, and that would water all their farms and everything to grow their food. So it was very similar in that sense to Egypt. But the Palestinian geography didn't allow that, because the Palestinian geography, they had 2 seasons, the rainy season and the dry season. And the land was a wide variety of types. There was plains, coastal plains, mountains, foothills, and desert, and then a wide variety of weather conditions too. So they grew different kinds of crops and did it different ways than the Sumerians did. And then I attempted to date the 2 accounts, and I had the J account at 550. I had the J account at about 850 BCE, and the P account at about 550 to 400 BCE, and then about 400 BCE for the recension. And I'm not so sure of all that anymore either. Then I did literary studies, which go to the heart of what the author was attempting to do. And I said the purpose of the account seems to me to be threefold: to reveal God's saving grace, to introduce the theme of the remnant, and to connect the theme of man's evil with the solution, the remnant. The remnant of the people, of course, was Noah and his sons and his wife and their wives. And over and over and over throughout the Bible, into the New Testament, remnant has been the theme. It's one of the main themes about how God's going to continue His world.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, in the New Testament, the remnant is the church. And then I said it was a self-contained unit. I said, and we don't know the authors of either J or P or J. And then I did a structural outline. And some of it, a lot of it, is the chiasms, which means you go down and then you come back with the same things. The first verses 5 through 7 of chapter 6 have a triple descending, the words repeat. And a lot of the structure is around the words repeating, and the ideas repeating. And then I went to the P account and the J account, and they have their own structure too. And I worked all that out. Then I did word study. And I studied things like Noah was righteous and wholehearted. The end of all flesh has come before me. You shall make a window in the ark, and you shall face the roof to a cubit above it. For that one, I said, this possibly means a skylight all the way around the ark, cubit below the roof.
Microphone.
And then perpetual generations, meaning here probably all eternity. And then I talked about that he used the word generations 3 times and a little different meaning each time. And then I went through some more words. And then I did in-depth study of 3 words, of repented, grieved, and what was the third one? Let's see, the third one. No. Well, whatever, I did a third one. Then I talked about how the story of Noah is quoted throughout the Bible, both Old and New Testament, particularly the Old Testament. And then God's intention is the same as it has always been. A remnant will survive the judgment. In the prophets, they often talk about the remnant that will be saved out of all the people that have gone awry. In the Old Testament, the remnant is those people who are repentant and faithful to God's law. And then in the New Testament, the remnant is seen as a holy community separate from the state. In the Old Testament, in the Jewish society, church and state were not separate. It was a theocracy. And then I said that there were 3 kinds of remnant. A historical remnant, which is those who survive any given catastrophe. The eschatological remnant, those who in the last days will, at the time I wrote go to heaven, but now I think it's to be in the new world that will come after Jesus comes back. And the faithful remnant, the true heirs and depository of the promises of the Bible. And it's this last remnant that is taught in the New Testament. And the Messiah comes for this group and fulfills the remnant's mission of redemption. And then I drew my conclusion. It can be seen that the story of Noah and the ark closes the prehistory of Genesis and provides the link between the prehistory and the patriarchs, that link being the remnant. By its being where it is in the Bible, it sets in motion the concept of the remnant, which is developed in the rest of the Bible. And last, it shows us our place in the remnant of the faithful in this day and age. And I got a good grade on this. The thing that surprised me at the time, and I still, when I look at this and think about it, my teacher wanted to put a copy of this, my professor, in the library for future students to use.
That's pretty good.
That's
So it was, I look at it now and I can't believe I actually wrote it. I mean, I don't remember doing all the research and everything, but obviously I did. And I don't know if I could write something like that now. I don't know where it all came from. I guess God gave it to me.
Well, the Methodists. I
My
want to.
professor was Frank Frick, who has articles in the Harper's dictionary, Bible dictionary. And he came into class one day, walks in. This is an Old Testament class. He walks in, he says, "You know what this is?" We're like, "No." He said, "It's a Jewish form of this."
Oh!
This is a teacher of religion that's doing this. And we all just kind of went,
I'm still doing that. That's funny.
So let's-
I went around with Jewish friends.
I want to.
Be careful.
Need to use different.
I want to add to what Kathy has shared, and we're going to get into this in chapters 9 and 10. But you know, we had 3 sons. Noah had 3 sons:
Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And here is a map that I'm going to pass around, because you wonder why do we have all these names? Because in chapter 10 it goes through and lists Shem, Ham, and Japheth offspring. Now, remember, when we had the flood, everything was wiped out. So what this map points to is where the descendants of these 3 boys, where they went. Shem's ancestors went to Asia. And the 5 Semitic nations, Elam, one of the sons, the Persians settled northeast of the Persian Gulf. Asher was the founder of the Assyrians. Apharax, whatever, I can't pronounce it. Arphaxad said, the Babylonians. Lud, the Ludians. And Aram, the Syrians. So, you think, where do these cities come from? So remember, the people at this time are probably looking at an atlas and say, where in the heck did Hutchinson come from? So, they list these names, and you can see by looking at colors, Shem, he's in purple, and his people are over here primarily in Arabia. Then we've got Ham, which is Hebrew for hot or black. Shem is Hebrew for name. Hot or black, he was the second oldest son, and his children founded the 4 Hamitic society or nations. The first one was Cush, which is the Ethiopians, Mizraim, the Egyptians, Put, the Libyans, and Canaan, the Canaanites. And so these people all kind of settled in the African areas. And you can see why when it says that his Ham translates as hot or black, a lot of those nations are dark-skinned nations. And so where Shem's offspring went to Asia, Ham's went to Africa. Then Japheth was Europe. His offspring went to Europe. And we have the 7 Japhetic nations, and Japhet is Hebrew for God will enlarge. Gomer, and I feel sorry for a guy being named Gomer. The Cimmerians settled north of the Black Sea, and his descendants probably occupied Germany, France, Spain, and the British Isles. Magog, the Scythians, lived north of the Caspian Sea. Madai, the Medes, settled south of the Caspian Sea. Javan, the Ionians, or the Greeks. Javan is the Hebrew name for Greeks. They settled in Greece. Tubal, the Turks, lived south of the Black Sea. Meshesh, the Slavs, lived between the Black and Caspian Seas. The Tyras, the Etruscans, lived west of the Black Sea. Now, the Etruscans, Etruscans. Etruscans, I am pronouncing it right. When on one of our trips to Italy, there was one city, I think it's Oviedo. They had a tour. I didn't see where it was. I'd have gone on it. But the Etruscans had come into Italy, and then when another tribe came in, the Etruscans went underground. And under this city, there is a city of tunnels where they live. Now, we are one other spot in Italy where, they had some inscriptions on the wall, but they really went underground, and they don't know where they came from, and they don't know where they went. So, it could well be that they were the descendants of Japheth, and they appear. This is not unlike the Native Americans who built all those cave dwellings in southwest Colorado, Mesa Verde. They don't know where those Native Americans came from, and they don't know where they went. The Etruscans were the same thing. They showed up, they moved underground, they disappeared. Now, the feeling is probably they intermarried with other people, and somebody went on a date and found some cute girl underground, and they got married and had children, and
Just assimilated with other societies.
Yeah, they were assimilated in. But I thought it was interesting. That's why I have this map for you, because when we start talking about these places, it's sometimes confusing. And as I was reading this, I thought I got to find a map, because I'm not sure where the Caspian Sea and the Black Sea are in contrast to this. Now, the Red Sea I knew, the Persian Gulf I knew, but some of these little things, hard to find. So, when you look at Greece, the Javans, the Tarshish, over in Spain, here you can see, here's how some of these descendants got up even into England and became Episcopalians. But I digress.
And Mennonites.
And Mennonites, yes.
Yes. And then they all came over here.
Yeah.
Does it surprise you that they were called to be in the ark with Noah, a close family,
Mm-hmm.
and now they're dispersed? I'm sure they never had a reunion after all this, because they were all over.
The grandkids are scattered.
Yeah. That somehow.
They keep in touch on Facebook, though.
Yeah. Facebook and Instagram. They were using TikTok until it was shut down.
It's back up, though.
But you people say, well, what's the connection of these to God? Well, the stories that were told in these communities were stories that were told about Noah, his children, and Adam and Eve, and the garden. So, and we'll get in here a little bit later on. The question came up, when Moses came over and worked with his father-in-law, and God spoke to him out of the burning bush, a lot of people said, hey, how do we know this is the same God that Abraham? And that connection is made, we'll find later on, is that one of the slaves that Abraham had was named Keturah. Keturah. And she had 6 sons. And one of those sons was associated with that same area where Moses was. And some biblical scholars say, well, maybe they just made that so it fit. I don't know. But the Bible says it is the God of Abraham because it's Abraham's offspring who developed that area. So, but we're going to go through a whole bunch of names here. And Kathy, I'm going to have you read because
Is this thing still on?
Yeah, it's still on.
we're at chapter 9.
Chapter 9. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. The fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth and upon every bird of the heavens, upon everything that creeps on the ground and all the fish of the sea. Into your hand they are delivered. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. And as I gave you the green plants, I give you everything. But you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is, its blood. And for your lifeblood I will require a reckoning. From every beast I will require it, and from man. From his fellow man I will require a reckoning for the life of man. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. For God made man in his own image. There's something here. He's talking about giving them the animals.
Mm-hmm.
When Adam and Eve were in the garden, originally, everybody was vegetarian. And the animals were vegetarian too. They didn't eat each other or meat, or, they ate whatever plants there were. Now, God's changing the parameters and saying, okay, now you can have meat. And now the animals will be afraid of you, because they weren't afraid of them in the garden, except for the snake.
Well, I'd be afraid of the snake.
Because God cursed the snake.
Yes, but some of those dinosaurs were vegetarians.
Mm-hmm. Some animals stayed vegetarian, some didn't. It just all depended. Anyway, and you be fruitful and multiply, increase greatly on the earth and multiply in it. Then God said to Noah and to his sons with him, behold, I establish my covenant with you and your offspring after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the livestock, and every beast of the earth with you, as many as came out of the ark. It is for every beast of the earth. I establish my covenant with you that never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood, and never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, this is a sign of the covenant that I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for all future generations. I have set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. When I bring clouds over the earth, and the bow is seen in the clouds, I will remember my covenant that is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. And the waters shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the bow is in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. God said to Noah, this is a sign of the covenant that I have established between me and all flesh that is on earth. The sons of Noah who went forth from the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. These three were the sons of Noah, and from these the people of the whole earth were dispersed. Noah began to be a man of the soil, and he planted a vineyard. He drank of the wine and became drunk, and lay uncovered in his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his two brothers outside. Then Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both their shoulders, and walked backward, and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned backward, and they did not see their father's nakedness. When Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his youngest son had done, he said, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be to his brothers. Blessed be," and he also said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant." After the flood, Noah lived 350 years. All the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died.
Okay. Now, part of what she read, beginning at verse 18 through 27, that is Yahweh's edition. The rest was priestly. And, now in chapter 10, we're going to get the generations of the three boys that I had shared with you on the map. And we'll see where these people are. And I tell you, I thought you wrote a great paper. But I'll tell you what impresses me even more is that you're going to be able to pronounce all these names. Now, we're going to start off in chapter 10 down through verse 7. Those are priestly writing. But from 8 on, that's going to be Yahweh's writing. And I'll tell you, it's amazing that this is the Yahweh's talking about prehistory. Now let me make one comment about the flood. These were parochial people. They were living in a small area. There was no internet, there was no New York Times, there was no television. So when they saw a flood, as far as they were concerned, the whole world was flooded. You have to remember that, because now when we have a flood, we had with the hurricane, a lot of flooding in the Carolinas, and it wiped out a lot of houses. If we were parochial, and we lived in South Carolina, we'd say that's God is flooding us out. But we know, living up here, that floods happen. So we have to remember that these are parochial people. They only know really what they see.
But other cultures throughout the world, including Mesoamerica, have a flood story.
Yes, every culture has a flood story. Somehow, you have to describe or explain why in the hell it flooded. So, Kathy, we got a few minutes. Let's see if we can get through 10.
Be in a town and not get out any direction.
That's right. That's right.
Because I've been there.
These are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Sons were born to them after the flood. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tiras. The sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah. The sons of Javan, Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. From these, the coastal land people spread in their lands, each with his own language, by their clans in their nations. The sons of Ham, Cush, Egypt, Put, and Canaan. The sons of Cush, Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Raamah, and Sabteka. The sons of Raamah, Sheba, and Dedan.
Okay, now we're going to go in. That's all priestly writing. Now we're going to go into the Yahweh's. And, it did say in that passage that these are the sons of Japheth in their lands, each with his own language by their families in their nations. So now what we're doing is we're setting up for the story of the Tower of Babel. Because you would say, well, these are the sons of Noah, bless you. The sons of Noah. Well, what the heck? They all speak the same language, don't they? But they didn't. So we have to talk. How did they end up with different languages? Well, each formed their own nation. Each had their own language. So, Kathy, have at it.
The sons of,
Okay,
Verse 8.
8. Cush fathered Nimrod. He was the first on earth to be a mighty man. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore, it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. The beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. From there he went into Assyria and built Nineveh, Rehoboth, Ir, Calah, and Rezin between Nineveh and Calah. That is the great city. Egypt fathered Ludim, Anamim, Lahabim, Naphtahim, Pathrushim, Casluhim, from whom the Philistines came, and Caphtorim. Canaan fathered Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth, and the Jebusites, the Amorites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, the Arkites, the Sinites, the Arvadites, and the Zemarites, and the Hamathites. Afterward, the clans of the Canaanites dispersed. The territory of the Canaanites extended from Sidon in the direction of Gerar as far as Gaza, and in the direction of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim as far as Lasha. These are the sons of Ham by their clans, their languages, their lands, and their nations. To Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber, the elder brother of Japheth. Wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. To Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber, the elder brother of Japheth, children were born. The sons of Shem, Elam, Asher, Arpachshad, Lud, and Aram. The sons of Aram, Uz, Hul, Gether, and Mash. Arpachshad fathered Shelah, and Shelah fathered Aber. To Aber were born two sons. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days the earth was divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. Joktan fathered Amadad, Sheleph, Hazarmaveth, Jerah, Hadoram, Uzal, Dikla, Obal, Abimael, Sheba, Orpha, Havilah, and Jobab. All these were sons of Joktan. The territory in which they lived extended from Mesha in the direction of Shephar to the hill country of the east. These are the sons of Shem by their clans, their languages, their lands, and their nations. These are the clans of the sons of Noah according to their genealogies in their nations, and from these the nations spread abroad on the earth and after the flood.
Okay. Give it up, Bruce.
We're gonna test on that next one.
Yeah.
Stan said he would repeat all of it.
I'll tell you, that's usually never read as a lesson in church.
Probably not.
Kathy, I'm just amazed that you're able to you don't have to pause. Those names just roll off your tongue.
We don't know whether they're right or not, but she has confidence. She has confidence, so it sounds like it's right.
All right, we'll pick up with chapter 11 next week.